U.S. is taking the lead in rescue and relief efforts in earthquake-stricken Haiti. But after decades of neglect, are Washington and other powers returning to a bigger role in this poor country? And would that come at a price? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Imran Garda. Welcome to the program. Tens of thousands of people dead and many more injured and left homeless, all in a matter of seconds as a catastrophic earthquake hit Haiti last Tuesday. Several international relief organizations and teams are on the ground trying to find and help survivors. Well, with just one congested airport, relief supplies and aid is trickling into Haiti at a very slow pace, and distributing this aid has become a logistical nightmare, with the country's already poor infrastructure compounded with the devastation. Thousands queue up, but as many miss out, frustration is building up. Survivors say not enough is being done to ease their desperate situation. The United Nations has described the situation as the worst it has ever confronted. Well, working closely with the UN and the Haitian government is the United States. The U.S. Army has been actively involved in helping distribute aid. In addition, U.S. President Barack Obama has pledged more troops and an initial $100 million in aid to Haiti, one of the largest relief campaigns in U.S. history. He's asked his two predecessors in the White House to lead America's fundraising campaign for Haiti. Al Jazeera's Tom Ackerman has more.
As U.S. military and civilian agencies struggled with the immediate challenges of disaster relief, Barack Obama summoned his last two predecessors to the White House to launch a fundraising drive for the long-term recovery of Haiti.
The two leaders with me today will ensure that this is matched by a historic effort that extends beyond our government, because America has no greater resource than the strength and the compassion of the American people.
I know a lot of people want to send blankets or water. Just send your cash. One of the things that President and I will do is to make sure your money is spent wisely.
Obama lauded Bush for his funding of global AIDS prevention and Asian tsunami relief, but made no mention of his predecessor's botched response to Hurricane Katrina, the worst U.S. natural disaster of his presidency, or of Bush's helping to ouster Haiti's former elected president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide.
President Bush.
But by bringing Bush back to the White House for the first time since he left office, Obama may have sought to defuse some domestic critics who've accused him of trying to capitalize on the earthquake response to shore up his sagging job approval ratings. Meanwhile, another Clinton, the U.S. Secretary of State, landed in Port-au-Prince to be greeted by her diplomats and aid workers, but also running into complaints about how Washington has been handling its lead role in the international relief operation. A French plane reportedly carrying a field hospital was diverted while other aircraft were allowed to land. The French are now denying that they filed a formal protest with the Americans. After meeting their president, Clinton assured Haitians that her government was not dictating its will.
We will work with your government under the direction of President Préval to assist in every way we can.
But it's the U.S. that's now likely to become the single largest source of Haiti aid money. And former President Clinton says the U.S. must support the country over the long term.
The Haitians want to just amend their development plan to take account of what's happened in Port-au-Prince and West, figure out what they got to do about that, and then go back to implementing it. But it's going to take a lot of help and a long time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
A project that will demand the support of Americans amid their own economic slump. Tom Ackerman, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Well, joining us now are our guests in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Patrick Bellegarde-Smith. He's a professor of Africology at the University of Wisconsin. In Atlanta, Lyra Rhodes. She's an associate professor of journalism at the University of Georgia and author of the book Democracy and the Role of the Haitian Media. And in Doha, Todd Kent. He's an assistant professor of political science and a scholar at the Bush School of Homeland Security. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. Mr. Patrick Bellegarde-Smith, if I could start off with you. Barack Obama's decision to enlist two of his predecessors, Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, is it a masterstroke of a humanitarian gesture, or could it perhaps be seen as an insult to the people of Haiti?
I don't think that it can be seen as an insult to the people of Haiti. I think what he's trying to do is to show to the American public, certainly, that he wants to bring in both political parties in this enterprise. And in the past, one has called upon President Clinton and George Bush Sr. to do those kinds of endeavors. So this time they have relied on the younger Bush.
Let's go to Leora Rhodes. You know, looking at this move, has it more to do with internal domestic politics or actual humanitarian intervention?
From the perspective of the United States?
Yes.
Yes. I think it has more to do with humanitarian. We are a people who care about others, and we can see that from the kind of rallying we did with the Katrina, with after 9/11. Yes, I think that we are a people who look for ways to help others.
Ms. Rhodes, do you think there's a greater responsibility for the likes of the United States, maybe even the likes of France, given their history with Haiti and the fact that they didn't really give Haiti a chance historically to develop itself?
Yes, it came from the colonial structures. It was a peripheral state, and it fed the core economies, which created problems in wealth and drain and brain drain and lots of things that happen in peripheral societies like Haiti.
Todd Kent, what do you make of this humanitarian offensive, if you like, not only by the United States, but by the entire world? Does it warm your heart to see this massive response since last Tuesday?
Well, I think one thing that we're seeing is the magnitude of the issue, where even the UN and most of your NGOs have even lost their ability to operate in the area. So this massive response, and there's been not only from the U.S., but other countries have stepped in. I think we're just beginning to understand this is a long-term problem, and it's not going to go away soon, even with a lot of short-term aid.
Patrick, Bellegarde-Smith, our correspondent Teresa Bo was in Léogâne, in the south of Haiti. Speaking to her in the past 24 hours, she said that people there were appealing to her to tell the world not to give the money to the aid agencies, but to give it directly to them, to the people, because they're actually still waiting for their surroundings to be rebuilt from those devastating hurricanes of 2008. What do you make of that?
Did you see Léogâne?
Yes, Léogâne.
I'm glad that somebody is paying attention. I'm glad that somebody is now paying attention to Léogâne. One has also to pay attention to Jacmel and other cities on the southern peninsula of the country. But I had not heard that anyone had yet gone to those places. And I'm sure that water is of the essence, food has to be distributed, and whether or not it makes it all the way out to those cities outside of Port-au-Prince remains to be seen. And I think, of course, the major disaster area has been Port-au-Prince. So this is where the emphasis has been placed, of course.
Ms. Rhodes, this really does show you the scale of the disaster, given that the country is still trying to recover from other previous disasters, and now it was hit with this earthquake, doesn't it?
Yes. But, you know, in following up on your question to Dr. Bellegarde-Smith, one of the problems in Haiti is that nobody knows who is doing what. There are so many NGOs, there are so many relief organizations, there are so many churches, there are so many charitable people participating in Help for Haiti, but there's no central clearinghouse of communications of who is doing what and where. They don't talk to each other in ways that make it seem as though lots is being done. But there is a lot of work being done. We see that through the peasant groups, we see that through some of the NGOs, we see that through the churches.
Todd Kent, why do you think there's no central clearinghouse and no central authority? Is it because of a political vacuum?
No, well, I think there's no central clearinghouse within Haiti, but I think some of the criticism that even has been aired today is that the U.S. Military has taken control, and the U.S. way of operating is to set up an incident command center that can become the clearinghouse. I think everybody recognizes the problem of just taking the aid directly to the street. We've seen the issue of looters and of the security issues. So I think you're seeing the U.S. military setting up control, and they will begin to distribute. Now, the criticism is it's not happening fast enough, but I think the distribution channels within the country are so weak and so poor that a lot of work has to be done.
Patrick Bellegarde-Smith, Alex Larson, Haiti's health minister, has been quoted as saying the devastation was such that 3/4 of the capital needs to be rebuilt. So I guess when the rescue and recovery effort ends, when the rescue, recovery and relief effort ends and it gets to rebuilding, do you think there'll be the political will and long-term funding for places like Port-au-Prince, 3/4 of Port-au-Prince, to be rebuilt?
Well, let me say right off the bat that Haiti has suffered earthquakes before. In the 19th century, there were devastating earthquakes. In those days, of course, more than 100 years ago, there was no such thing as foreign aid. And Haiti picked itself up and was able to rebuild itself. And Haiti will suffer earthquakes again. This is not the first time. This is the way the Caribbean is built. Those are volcanic islands. They sit on major fault lines. And we, of course, suffer hurricanes every single year. And it baffles me as to why Americans or Europeans think of tropical islands as paradise. They are anything but paradise, certainly not to me. And I was raised in Haiti. Yes, there is a political will. I think that the Haitian diaspora, the million or so Haitians who live abroad in the United States, in Western Europe, in Africa, in Canada, and elsewhere, will come and help. At least this is my hope. But I think there's the will inside Haiti. And we have seen Haitians helping themselves over the last 5 days. And it's been remarkable how quiet the population has been, how sensitive it has been. And you have had neighbors helping neighbors. And this is something that we need to praise. And we've not said enough about how well the Haitians have functioned over the last 5 days.
You make some interesting points. Now, besides the scientific fact that Haiti, like many of the other islands in the Caribbean, lie on a fault line, when people ask, particularly in the United States, as to why this happens, it doesn't help when influential religious leaders like Pat Robertson, the evangelical leader, says things like Haiti suffers all of this distress and is cursed because Haitians made a pact with the devil. Doesn't help, does it?
Well, Haitians could not have made a pact with the devil because, you see, in the national religion of Haiti, which is called Vodou, there is no such thing as a devil. So you cannot make a pact with an entity that does not exist. The devil does not exist. So you can't make a pact with it. And if you have made a pact with the devil would have helped you out. And the devil is not showing his mettle because he's not helping the situation. So I don't think there was any pact. I think the U.S. ought to turn this against itself and look at itself in this connection.
Okay, let's go back to some of the history now. With natural disasters, political and economic conflict, Haiti is obviously a particularly vulnerable country. A look into the country's past, to a great extent, explains its present. Here's Al Jazeera's Avi Lewis.
Unlike the earthquake that has focused international attention on it once again, Haiti's fate as one of the poorest countries in the hemisphere has not been inevitable. Once the richest colony in the Americas, a slave revolt against French rule in 1804 established Haiti as the world's first black republic. But under threat of invasion, the country agreed to compensate France for loss of property, a debt that took 120 years to repay and launched a cycle of debt, dependence, and instability. Fast forward almost 2 centuries. After more than 3 decades of dictatorship and military rule that plunged the country deeper into international debt, former Catholic priest Jean-Bertrand Aristide was elected president in 1990 on a wave of support from the country's poor majority. Just 9 months later, Aristide was ousted in a military coup. Death squads led by Emmanuel Toto Constant, who later claimed to be on the CIA's payroll, rampaged through the country, terrorizing Aristide supporters. In 1994, then-President Bill Clinton and a fleet of U.S. Marines backed Aristide's return to power, but not before Aristide agreed to a program of economic adjustment monitored by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, marked by downsizing, privatization, and deregulation. Tariffs on foreign rice, for example, were slashed from 50% to 3% in weeks, and subsidized imports from the United States flooded the country, forcing many of Haiti's farmers out of business, off their farms, and into urban slums. Critics of the policies say they helped set the stage for the so-called food riots that swept the country in 2008. Aristide's second term as president was cut short when he was again ousted from power in 2004 by a coalition of business and political elites. Though support for him still runs high in Haiti's poor neighborhoods. The United States sent troops, and the United Nations authorized a peacekeeping mission to pacify the gangs, and some say the Aristide supporters, in the country's slums. But the UN mission has been controversial in Haiti, accused of killing indiscriminately and eliciting outrage and fear from the very people it is supposed to be protecting. Since the election of President René Préval in 2006, the country has continued to struggle for stability. In 2008, 4 hurricanes killed at least 800 people and caused more than $1 billion of damage. Only last year did international financial institutions and the United States finally cancel Haiti's $1.2 billion debt. And the UN has appointed Clinton its special envoy for Haiti. But as international aid begins flowing into the country once again in response to this most recent crisis, the question remains: can a former U.S. president and so much foreign aid really deal with the aftershocks of Haiti's history? Avi Lewis, Al Jazeera.
Fascinating report there by Avi Lewis. Todd Kent, is the real tragedy here that there was a series of events which led to Haiti becoming what many would call a failed state, which meant that it's in a far worse position than any other place to handle the effects of an earthquake?
Certainly, you not only have you mentioned a failed state, you've had a weak government with weak institutions, whether they be churches or governmental institutions or other institutions within the country. And then you top that with the 4 natural disasters that have happened over the last 4 years. The situation is very dire. And so I think for the long term in Haiti, you have to go back to rebuilding institutions that matter and that can make a difference. But the government has struggled over the years with corruption, with military intervention, and so it's going to take a lot of work.
Ms. Rhodes, we all spoke about all the help coming from different directions. We've seen the help coming from places like Cuba, from Venezuela, from the United States. I wonder, are we going to see more of Haiti being used as a sort of ideological proxy battleground between the likes of the United States on the one hand and Venezuela and Cuba on the other in the aftermath of this earthquake?
I hope not. I think that the decision will be really on how the different programs come together on the ground. As long as people work together, which we saw from the UN, from the Canadians, from the Brazilians, all working together, I think it's very possible to have a humanitarian effort and not have to do with the politics. But the world being full of politics, I think only the future will see.
Mr. Bellegarde-Smith, what do you think of that?
Well, I have to say that Venezuela and Cuba have been long-term friends with Haiti. Their own independence movements were very much connected to Haitian struggles, and Haiti was very instrumental in providing assistance to those 2 countries more than a century ago. And I think that whatever aid comes from Venezuela or Cuba is genuine. And I also think that the Americans are very genuine in wanting to do what they are doing right now. The country needs assistance, and it has to come very, very fast. But it has to be sustained over long periods of time. And whether or not the interest of those outsiders can be maintained over the long run remains to be seen. But the Haitians will have to provide directions themselves. And Haiti is not a failed state. It has never been a failed state. And so it has the institutions to move forward. It has been stymied by its own elites. It has been stymied by international powers, but it can regroup as it has in the 19th century. In the 19th century, its standard of living was higher than it is today, by the way. So we need to keep that in mind.
Todd Kent, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, says it will lend Haiti a further $100 million. That's not the way to go, is it, surely? Because it would only plunge Haiti further into debt. It's not going to be able to pay that back anytime soon.
Well, certainly, and certainly the previous loans weren't paid back. And so I think you mentioned institutions. The problem they're facing right now is whatever institutions were there have totally collapsed. And so it's a rebuilding effort, and a loan of $100 million is just the start of when you're talking about rebuilding an entire city, not only the infrastructure of a city, but also the institutions within that, and then extending out into the rural areas, which will be the most difficult to help. So yeah, I think the problem with loans is they do put a country into debt, but I think in the short term there's probably no concern about whether it be paid back or not.
Lyra Rhodes, more IMF and World Bank loans aren't what Haitians need, are they?
I don't think so. I would argue that though the loans were paid back, it was at a tremendous sacrifice, and it was not putting back the infrastructures and the programs that were needed. Now, I would say that I would also argue that the Haitian people are quite capable of coming up with their own solutions and doing that, giving the tools and giving the institutions. And I think that's where the future lies in allowing the Haitian people to keep their sovereignty and to be able to create their institutions and do what they need to do to rebuild their country. It's a different culture, and we need to respect how they work and how they function.
Patrick Bellegarde-Smith, we don't have much time left, so I'm going to give you a chance for the final thoughts on the program. Ms. Rhodes said